Hello and welcome to this live demo of Concur Travel and Expense configuration. My name is Sven Ringling. I am Director of iProcon Limited in London, from where we help customers across the world with their SAP HR, SuccessFactors and of course Concur Travel and Expense systems. Today I want to give you a little demo of configuration steps within Concur to illustrate that you can change a lot of the system behaviors with very little effort. Concur has a large set of configuration options to set up warnings and exceptions that require manager approval, which in systems like SAP Travel Management would actually require hardcore programming, and in many other systems you couldn't set them up at all. To illustrate how quick it can actually be done, I'm set up to do this live demo without any cuts, so you may actually hear the occasional M from my side, but you will know that this is unplugged in live and there's no cheating involved. Okay, so let's get started. What I want to set up is an exception to require managerial approval if 3 or more employees of the same company are booked on the same flight. This is a policy many organizations have put in place for risk management. How do we do this? Well, to begin with, I need to step into the travel administration section of Concur Travel and Expense, and my first step would be to set up the policy violation reason attached to this exception. Then I can create the actual rule and assign this rule to the group of employees I wanted to apply to. So, starting with step 1, policy violation reasons. It's actually quite easy. I just go to add a new reason and then have to make up a code. Let's call this too many passengers and a long text description. Too many employees on this flight. And then I just have to characterize the type, and we are looking at an air travel exception here. That's it. A code, a description, and a type, and save. So now I have my policy violation reason, which I can assign to the rule. To build the rule, I need to go to the travel rule builder. It's quite down there in the menu under travel administration. And I have to pick a category where my rule falls into. Obviously, I'm setting up a general rule for flights, so I pick flight and then see the existing rules we already have in place. Click add to create my new rule. So now it's the point where you either have to know what you're looking for or use the search field a little bit. It's actually quite far down. You have a lot of exceptions to choose from here, but the one I want is here, more than number of passengers on a flight, and there are two options. One of them hides the actual passenger names and the other one gives you the passenger names. I do not want to hide the passenger names because I want the traveler to see which colleagues they're on a flight with, so they can actually make a judgment whether that's a problem or not. I said we want the rule to kick in with 3 or more employees on the same flight. You see here the definition is more than, so I have to say more than 2 passengers. All I need to do now is give the rule a name. And assign my violation code, which was TM for too many. Okay, so now you see we have an extra rule in our set of rules, That was step 2. We've created the violation reason, we've created the rule and assigned the violation reason, and now I need to tell the system whether and when to apply this particular rule. I can go back to Travel Admin Home, where I have the travel policies at the very beginning. Now I choose which rule class to work for. Obviously we are working for travel here, not expense, and I want it to apply for all employees. So again, now you see the rules we have in place for the category of employees. Some are for flights, some are particularly dealing with the class of flights. We have no rules for rail. We have one rules for car hire with an upper limit of £90, and so it goes on. We want to add a new rule for flights. And the nice thing now, the system actually remembers that the last thing we did was to add this particular rule in our set of rules. So all we have to do is tick it, then decide what we want to happen. So the default is it requires approval. I leave it there. We also leave the number of passengers at 2, and now we just have to decide which message we want to send to the employee when they're trying to book. Okay, that's all we have to do. We save this. And all should be done. Obviously, you expect me to prove this to you now. And to do this, I have to try to book a flight. The flight I choose to use is actually a flight myself and one of my colleagues are already booked on. So I cannot book myself again. And therefore, I need to proxy for a colleague. So I'm proxying for my colleague, Chris. If you are now thinking, why can somebody just proxy for anybody else? No worries, it's all controlled with the user authorization rights, and it's been defined there that I can actually proxy for people from my team. So I'm acting now as Chris. We see there are no current trips ongoing, and I now want to try to book a one-way trip from Hanover in Germany to London Heathrow in the UK. And I want to book this trip on Thursday, the 26th of November, and depart around 6-ish and see what comes up. So if you are using Concur already, this is obviously very familiar to you. The normal flight search is going on. Get quite a few choices, as we already see. We limit our choices to the non-stop flights, and the first is actually the one I will try to book because I know that there are already 2 colleagues booked onto this flight. So what happens if, acting as Chris, I'm selecting this flight now? Well, that's exactly what happens. You see it says it requires approval. It gives the message we assigned to our rule earlier. I'm quite surprised that I didn't have any typos in there actually. And it also tells Chris that, well, these are the 2 colleagues that are already on the flight. So is it considered to be too risky because they're all dealing with the same project and we don't want them to die all in the same plane crash? Or would we say, let's go ahead? Then I would say yes, and then it would be sent to managerial approval. As Chris does not want to fly from Hanover to Heathrow on that particular day, I stop it here, but I think it makes the whole principle clear. And you also see that setting this rule up can be really done in a couple of minutes. So before I do anything stupid, I stop acting for Chris and go back to my own home screen. So yeah, it's quite fascinating coming out of the SAP Travel Management consultancy, where I would have to do some programming for a lot of things I can do with Concur. It's very interesting. What you need to consider is it's very easy to set up a lot of these individual rules. The thing you really need to spend some thoughts on is figuring out how all these rules would work together, how they work with your process, what does actually make sense in your day-to-day business.